Okay, happy Leap Day. This is the February 29th, 2024 hearing for case number Z0276-23, the Welch's Pump Station. My name is Joe Turner. I'm the county's hearings officer. My role as the hearings officer is to conduct public hearings and make decisions about certain land use matters in Clackamas County. In making those decisions, I am required to apply the county's existing laws. I don't have the authority to vary from or change the laws. If anyone thinks the laws need to be changed, they can work with Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners to do that, but state law requires that this application be judged based on the laws in effect when the application was filed. As a hearings officer, I'm to provide an unbiased decision maker, and I believe I am unbiased with regard to the application before me today. I've not had any pre-hearing contact with any of the parties regarding the substance of the application, and I don't have any interest in the subject property or any of the surrounding properties. But you have the right to challenge my impartiality, to argue that I'm biased in one way or another, and you can do that when it's your opportunity to testify. Procedure will follow. We'll start by asking staff to summarize the staff report, copies of which are available on the county's website. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to present their proposal and respond to the staff report. If anybody else shows up and wants to say anything about this application in support, in opposition, or with questions or concerns, they may do so. If anybody does, I'll give everyone a chance, the staff and the applicant a chance to respond to that testimony. If their responses include new evidence, I'll give everyone a chance to respond to the new evidence. Otherwise, I'll close the public portion of the hearing and announce what I'm going to do. Generally, I will issue a written decision within about 2 weeks after the close of the record. Send my decision to the county. The county will send it to parties of record. So anybody who testifies orally or in writing before the close of the record will receive a copy of my decision. Anyone with an interest in this application may offer relevant oral or written testimony, but testimony should be relevant to the applicable approval criteria, which are set out in the staff report. It is important that all parties make their best case to me. My decisions are final for purposes of the county, but may be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals, or LUBA. However, LUBA generally will not allow new testimony and evidence on appeal. They'll decide any appeal based on the record before me. So if you feel it's important that myself or any future decision maker knows something about this application, you need to make sure it gets into the record before me. In order to preserve your right to appeal, you or someone expressly representing you must testify orally or in writing before the close of the record. And in order to raise an issue on appeal, someone must have raised that issue before me. If anyone feels they need more time to prepare, you can ask me to hold the record open or continue the hearing. If I hold the record open, you'll have an opportunity to submit additional written testimony and evidence before I make a decision. If I continue the hearing, we can come back and do this again at a later date. But whether or not the hearing is continued or the record is held open for any other purpose, state law requires that I hold the record open for an additional week for the applicant alone to submit a final written argument without any new evidence. The applicant can waive that right if they choose, but if anybody else wants me to hold the record open or continue the hearing for any other purpose, you must make that request before the close of the hearing today. But that concludes my introduction. I'll ask staff to summarize the Zoom process, and then we'll proceed to the hearing.
Great, thank you. This public hearing will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing, which include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, have both audio and video capability. Audience members who have joined this meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by the county staff moderator. Audience members' video will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county makes every effort to post the recording on the county website later today. There is a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for public testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raise hand feature. For attendees on PC and iPad, you have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar, either at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on your device. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a little while. Primarily, you will see all participants' cameras, not just the one who's speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin. Once you've provided your testimony, your microphone will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of this hearing and you wish to submit additional written testimony, you can email your written testimony to myself at mlord@clackamas.us, or you can mail it to Clackamas County Planning and Zoning, 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City 97045. My contact email address is also available on the webpage where you found the link for today's Zoom hearing. Testimony must be received by 4 p.m. on the day the record closes. People who testify and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer's written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive the decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address to myself at mlord@clackamas.us or by entering it into the Zoom chat function during the hearing. And with that, I prepared a PowerPoint presentation today, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Are we still looking at my?
We're seeing it's not quite in focus
No.
yet.
We're not looking at my PowerPoint. Let me try again.
I don't know what we were seeing there.
This feels better.
There we go.
Okay. There we go. If I make it bigger, is it going to get a little bit wonky again for you guys, or is that?
Oh, that worked.
That worked. Okay. I'm not going to touch anything else then. I'll get started. So today, February 29th, I'm Melissa Lord. I'm speaking on behalf of the Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division on behalf of Land Use Application File Z0276-23, which is a conditional use permit. The subject property we're looking at is generally located on the south fairway of the Mount Hood Golf Course up in Welches. The property is zoned open space management, or OSM, and the site itself is just under 12 acres in size. The property is developed with the South Welches Pump Station, which was developed in around 1980, and it's been operating on site ever since. The applicant proposes some upgrades and improvements to the existing pump station, which include replacing the roof on the existing control building, adding a new permanent generator, replacing pumps, valvings, and things of that nature. The purpose of this application or this proposal is to replace old and failing equipment in order to increase the reliability of the facility and address specific maintenance issues. Clackamas Water Environment Services, or WES, they're the applicant. This is also the WES Pump Station, and it is a public utility facility which requires the review of a conditional use permit in the OSM zone. We did not have record of a conditional use permit already on file for this site, which is why we're looking at this as a conditional use permit today. Staff recommends approval with conditions for the reasons that I'll outline generally in my presentation over the next couple of slides. So just in terms of site orientation, this is a snippet of an image that was submitted with the application materials just to locate us on the specific property. And on the next slide, I've got a very zoomed in version of the site plan. So we've got a picture here of the existing control building. That's the building that will get a new roof material, a new roof style. Then they're also proposing to add a generator on a permanent foundation, new wet well, access, new valve vault hatch, bypass vault, etc. So these are just some of the features that the application has described of what they're proposing to do. The zoning and development ordinance, there are many sections that are applicable to this application. I've gone in detail in response to each of these criteria in my staff report, which is entered into the record as exhibit number 1. I won't spend too long on each of these sections today. but I'll go through a few of these sections. So ZDO section 1002 talks about the protection of natural features. So on this particular development site, there are no slopes that are greater than 20%. We don't have any excessive tree removal proposed, as excessive tree removal, as defined in this particular section of our code, relates to properties within the urban growth boundary. This particular site's outside of the urban growth boundary. The river and stream corridor standards are applicable here. This property is adjacent to the Salmon River, and the property is also within the deer and elk winter range below 3,000 feet of elevation. As described in my staff report, we found that with conditions, these standards can be met or are not applicable. Similarly, section 1003 and 1004, 1003 talks about hazards to safety. So mass movement hazards, soil hazards are not applicable at this site. There is potentially the concern for flood hazard. However, the applicants did show that they're proposing development above the base flood elevation. And so we've recommended a condition of approval to have those plans stamped by an engineer certifying that the development is in fact above base flood elevation. So with a condition of approval, that standard can be met as well. And section 1004 pertains to historic preservation, cultural preservation, and that's not applicable on this site. ZDO section 1005 looks at site and building design. In terms of site design, the facility itself and the control building, they're not open to the public at any time. So it's an unmanned or unstaffed facility. We're not proposing any changes to the site circulation or building orientation or the use of the building. And so as applicable, the criteria for site design are met. Building design, the control building facade is not visible from any public right-of-way. There are no public entrances to the building. The proposed roof material is a material that's permitted in the area. And so, pardon me, as applicable, this particular section is met as well. Section 1006, we look at utilities and services to the property. And so 1006.03 looks at the water service provider. So Salmon Valley Water Authority did sign a preliminary statement of feasibility saying that, yes, as proposed, it seems as though we have the capacity to support the project on this site. Similarly, the sanitary sewer provider and the surface water management authority for this property is Wes, who's also the applicant. They too provided a preliminary statement of feasibility confirming that this project is feasible within their district. Section 1007, we look at roads and connectivity. So the Clackamas County Development Engineering Department also took a look at this application and provided some comments in review of this project. There would be no increase in vehicle trips to and from the site with the proposed development or proposed changes. There are no changes to vehicular access from East Welch's Road. They're still going to continue to not have any offices or on-site staff or public accessing this property at any time. And so bicycle and pedestrian facilities are really not applicable to this type of development. And then lastly, the project site is not on a designated transit route. So again, as applicable, the standards of section 1007 are being met. Section 1015 talks about parking. Because the control building or the facility itself is not staffed, the development does not require any additional parking. The site is visited for occasional maintenance purposes, and so there is space within this area for a maintenance vehicle to park and to turn around to access the site as needed. Section 1021 for solid waste and recycling. We found that this section is not applicable for this particular development. There's no existing or proposed demand for waste and recycling on site, especially again, because there's no on-site staff and the property is not open to the public. So there's really no need for it. And then lastly, this is a conditional use permit. So just quickly, I'll touch on the standards for conditional uses. The public utility facility is a conditional use in the OSM zoning district, as I mentioned earlier. The project site is not visible from the public right-of-way. There are no changes to the proposed use or the scale of the operation on site. We've had continued for over 40 years. And the pump station is essential to support the sewer district with adequate sanitary sewer service. And so generally for those reasons, we found that the standards of the conditional use section 1203, are being met. This time we've received no public comment on the application. And again, staff recommends approval with conditions of this application. That concludes my presentation.
Ms. Reisman, are you representing the applicant again?
There we go.
There
Yes.
you go.
Yes, there we go. Hello, my name is Eric Eisenman, E-I-S-E-M-A-N-N. I'm with E Squared Land Use Services in Portland, Oregon. With me also today is Jessica Rinner with Water Environment and Services. She's the project manager on this project, and also is Mr. Adam Crafts with Consor Engineering, the design consulting engineer. We very much appreciate the work that staff has put into this application. We think their report is very thorough. We appreciate the thoroughness of their presentation as well. We've reviewed the recommendations for conditions of approval, and we also agree to comply with those recommendations. With that, we have nothing further to add of any substance to this application, but we do appreciate the county's work.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to say anything about this application in support, in opposition, or with questions or concerns? Didn't think so. Anything further from county staff?
No,
Okay.
nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eisman, do you want to waive the applicant's right to have me hold to submit a final argument?
We have no need to submit a final argument. Thank you, sir.
Okay. With that, I will close the public portion of the hearing and I will close the record. And based on the findings in the staff report, this application does or will comply with the applicable approval criteria. So I will approve the application subject to those findings and subject to conditions in the staff report. And that concludes our hearing. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you all.
Yeah.